Hey everybody, this is Alan Epley from Shiner and The Life and Times and Bird Hands and Third Gear Scratch and Solo Artist. You are listening to The New Scene. Congratulations.
Hello everybody, and welcome to The New Scene. I am your host Keith, and we are back with another brand new episode. And on the show this week, we have Marc Boulanger of Massa Nera. Massa Nera are an excellent up-and-coming band out of New Jersey. Their latest LP, The Emptiness of All Things, just came out on Persistent Vision Records. It's hard to put an exact label on them, but if you dig the more avant-garde side of screamo, hardcore, post-hardcore, emo, and power violence, you're going to love this band, and this record. I sure do. The Emptiness of All Things began as a commissioned work about climate change, and it looks at that through a number of different lenses. It's not just finger-wagging from the band saying, this is bad, and you should listen to us talk about it. It's a really interesting story and a really interesting concept. And Marc is just a super interesting person to talk to. Even if you don't know the band, even if this isn't your favorite kind of music, I think you're really going to get something out of this conversation. It's a great conversation, and it is coming up shortly. But first, here's how you can support The New Scene. Rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a main channel with full video episodes and a clips channel with clips from select episodes. We have shirts for sale at our store at Deathwish Inc. Pick one up. It's a great way to support the show. And you can follow us on social media at New Scene Pod. Also, don't forget to support Iodine Recordings. Cave In, Final Transmission. The vinyl and CD is available now in the Iodine Recording Store at Deathwish Inc. This is part of the new series of Hydra Head releases that are going to be available in the Iodine Recording Store. A lot more are coming, so head to the store, check it out, and pick up this must-have release from Cave In. Quicksand, Manic Compression, the 30th Anniversary Edition, is up now for pre-order. There's a 30th Anniversary LP, there's a new book if you want it. Get it before it's gone. Shelter, Mantra, the 30th Anniversary Edition, is up now for pre-order in the Iodine Recording Store. There's a Burning Wheel vinyl limited to 200 copies. Pick that up soon because it will sell out. And Drought is playing a show with Thursday and Free Throw. That's December 4th in San Jose, California at the Ritz. For more information, head to iodinerecordings.com, sign up for the newsletter, and you can follow the label on Instagram at Iodine Recordings. And say hello to our sponsor for the month of November, Evil Greed. In addition to their online store, Evil Greed offers tour merch, merch handling, and logistics services for tons of bands. They also offer merch and distribution solutions for bands and record labels in Europe and the UK. Evil Greed has a carefully selected roster of artists and labels in their online store. They offer very reasonable worldwide shipping rates specifically to the UK and the USA. Make sure you head to evilgreed.com, check out the featured music section, the featured merch section. The record of the month at Evil Greed is the new record from Drain. It's called Is Your Friend. The Evil Greed exclusive variant of Love Is Not Enough by Converge is up now for pre-order. That's the highly anticipated new LP from Converge. The new Worm official European merch store is up now at the Evil Greed site. Also check out the Devourment store, and there's new merch up from Mizmor. And the debut LP from Colossal Reigns is up now for pre-order in Europe. That's the new band featuring members of Blacklisted. Their debut is called Feral Sorrow, and it's out January 23rd. Sign up for the newsletter so you don't miss a thing. And you can follow them on Instagram at evil_greed. Okay, so check back in with me in segment 3. It's been a while since we caught up, so I'll tell you everything that's going on. I saw Shiner and Mirrorless the other week in New York. We'll talk about that. I'll talk about the Ink and Dagger shows and the recaps that are coming up and everything going on there. We'll do a wrap-up of the conversation with Marc. We'll cover everything. But right now, we are going to speak to Marc Boulanger of Massa Nera. Enjoy. All right, we are here now with Marc Boulanger. Marc, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mark, it's great to have you on the show. Massa Nera are up to great things. As always, we have the Emptiness of All Things coming out October 31st on Persistent Vision Records, and I've heard it. I love it, and I can't wait for everybody else to hear it. But we're going to talk about that and a lot of other things, Mark. But first, I want to ask you, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay, was really just doing a lot of, I guess, record PR upkeep today, updating our spreadsheet, emailing people. My other band, we sent our record out to be mastered today, which is great. I'm feeling good, all things considered.
Yeah, those are good, busy things to have, right? PR, another band out to be mastered. Those are the best times.
Yeah, exactly. It's exciting when a record is done or almost done, but it hasn't, been introduced to the world yet because it's still yours, right?
Right. What's your other band? What did you send out to be mastered?
Oh, my other band is called Our Wits. It's also ostensibly screamo, although like Massa Nera, it isn't really screamo, or it's screamo except in the case of the other band, the music is a lot more melodic, atmospheric. There's, post-rock, ambient, soul, R&B influence, all of that just kind of thrown into a blender.
Oh, that's Our Wits That Make Us Men.
Yes.
Is that the actual full name?
We're going to shorten it because it's a little bit unwieldy, that whole title, but, that's the full name.
Okay. Is that, how many members of Massa Nera are in that?
Just me.
Oh, okay.
The bassist of that band used to be the bassist of Massa Nera for about 8 months or so, but no, just me.
Okay. So where did you grow up?
Good old New Jersey.
Nice. Where at?
Well, I grew up in a small town called Clark. It's hell on earth, just a cultural wasteland. There's really not much to say. There are no trains. There's only one bus stop, no venues, et cetera, et cetera. It's just your prototypical conservative, small-minded New Jersey suburb.
Nice. Is that I read that the band's from Linden. Is Clark up that way, like North Jersey?
Yep, Clark neighbors Linden.
Okay. Yeah, that I grew up in a similar area. I mean, you know what? Like, yeah, conservative and maybe not a ton to do, but there was stuff to do too. Like there was some good outdoor stuff and all that kind of thing, and that I liked. But Clark, New Jersey, when I think of that, I just think of like warehouses and streets. And am I on point or am I off there?
Not really any warehouses in Clark. The suburbs of Union County aren't especially industrial, and Clark in particular doesn't really have any industrial districts. But yeah, just a lot of quiet streets, very few parked cars, a couple parks, a small downtown area. Yeah, by like 8 at night, it's pretty dead.
Yeah. So it sounds like you did not love growing up there.
No. I did not. I mean, when I was a child, the school district was really good. My teachers were great, or at least I had a really good time, attending class as their student. So in that sense, I can't complain too much. I learned a lot, and I had a good circle of friends. They were pretty good people. I can't complain. But again, it's just a small-minded place. If you're different at all or a little weird, then you're kind of like an outcast. And this, when I was a teenager, this was when your alternative press style screamo and post-hardcore were big, right? So even within or amongst people who ostensibly were into the same things that I was still an outcast.
Yeah, I don't know if I coined the term, but I always use the term classic screamo to describe the music we play and likely listen to. Page 99, Jerome's Dream, City of
Yep.
Caterpillar, Seisha. That's classic screamo. And I say that because when you say screamo now, people are like, oh, you like My Chemical Romance or you like The Used. Now, listen, no offense to those bands, but no, I'm referring to a specific era when I say screamo.
Wow, it's 2008 all over again. Yep, I remember having those very conversations with people as an increasingly flustered 15-year-old in my high school, trying to get anyone I could to listen to, you know, Page 99, A Day in Black and White, Off Minor, Ditro, whoever, right? Um, and you can only imagine when I tried to introduce people to even more extreme music, like Pig Destroyer, Discordance Axis, Dillinger. Uh, yeah, some interesting conversations in the cafeteria. Needless to say.
Yeah, when I Dillinger Escape Plan was like my favorite band in 98, 99. And when I would show that to people who didn't know about hardcore, they would be like downright offended. Like I'll never forget their face. They'd be like, what is this? This is
Yep.
like not even music.
I had the same. I remember I was in seventh grade. I remember or eighth grade. Eighth grade. I learned about them in 2007. So I was 13. It was right before Ironworks came out. I think I saw the music video for Panasonic Youth on YouTube, and I had no idea what the fuck it was either. So I kind of recoiled in disgust. But then a part of me wanted to understand it, So I dug deeper. I saw the old Virgin Megastore video where Greg Bachado was running on people's heads, right? And then I went, I listened to everything they had released up until that point. The self-titled EP, Under the Running Board, Calculating, Irony, whatever, right? And I remember in, what was it? I think it was physics class, showing my best friend at the time. Oh, I think it was the song Jim Fear off of Calculating Infinity. And I'll never forget, he just looked at me, perplexed and kind of disappointed, and just said, "This isn't music. That's not music. That's just noise." And then he just walked away.
Did you have friends in high school and grade school or whatever who listened to this music that you could talk to? Like, I think there was only two or three. Okay, me either. There's 2 or 3 hardcore kids in my whole high school. And I remember specifically wearing a Dillinger Escape Plan Under the Running Board shirt to school. And this kid looks at me. He's like, "What is that?" And I was like, "It's a band." He's like, "You're a geek, dude. You're a geek."
Yeah. I had let's see. When I was getting into alternative music and heavy music in general, and really just music in general beyond classic rock, not to disparage classic rock. When we toured with State Faults, Johnny and I were just going on and on and on about how much we both like, Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and bands like that. So I'm a little bit of a classic rock apologist, but when I started getting into punk and metal and weirdo music, there were a few people I could talk to about more palatable groups. I had friends who listened to, or at least were aware of, bands like Thursday and Glassjaw, even though not many people even liked them. They would rather listen to, A Day to Remember or whatever. And as the music got more and more extreme, there were less and less people that I could talk to. The only person off the top of my head who I think was down with everything I was exploring was this dude, Ed Pacella, who, still has a band. He's in a death metal band called World Eater. He was easily the most open-minded of my peers. And I think I got into this music a little bit before he did, but he dove right into it alongside me and then started showing me bands that I hadn't heard of. So, yeah, there was one person that I could really share music with. Other than him, no one.
Shout out Ed. He sounds like he's on the level.
He is on the level. He's still on the level. So,
nice.
Yeah.
How did you find the music?
As I said before, Clark doesn't really have a scene. Union County in general didn't and probably still doesn't have much of a scene outside of Elizabeth, maybe, the biggest city in the county. And unfortunately, as a white kid from the suburbs, my parents would not let me go to Elizabeth. But I didn't even know that there was anything to find there because no one that I knew was connected to anything, music community related. So I just read articles on the internet. I read reviews. I think, I'd go on the iTunes store and I'd read the biography of a band that I liked. And if there were bands mentioned in their bio, I would look them up. Or I'd go to All Music Guide and I'd read reviews there. I listened to the radio a lot. And it was just kind of like a rabbit hole from there. Listening to Metallica got me into Megadeth, which got me into Slayer and Anthrax, which got me into Testament, and then from there, or hearing Faith No More exposed me to Mr. Bungle, and then getting into Mr. Bungle introduced me to Fantomas and other weirdo groups. It was a similar thing. So with extreme metal or like core music in particular, on the one hand, my cousins were into metalcore, but not what we would probably consider real or classic metalcore, which for me refers to shit like Dead Guy, Rorschach, Botch, Kiss It Goodbye,
Yep.
Cave-In, stuff like that. They were into Trivium, Avenged Sevenfold, and for, a couple months, I dug those bands. And I remember I went on the Wikipedia page for metalcore, and in the subgenre section, there was a listing for mathcore. And the first band mentioned was the Dillinger Escape Plan. So I clicked on them, and that led me to Converge, Botch, Newt, Breather Resist, you name it. And then on the other hand, this being 2007 in New Jersey, as you can imagine, My Chemical Romance were even bigger then than they are now. And they're still, astronomic. So I think I went on the iTunes bio page for MyChem. And on that page, Thursday and Cursive were both listed as points of comparison or similar bands, especially because, Jeff from Thursday produced their first record, right?
Right.
So I learned about Thursday, got into post-hardcore because that's what they were listed as in Wikipedia. And fortunately, rather than going forward in time and exploring bands like Escape the Fate or whatever, that fucking dreck, instead, I went backwards and I learned about Fugazi and Quicksand and At the Drive-In. And, the more contemporaneous bands that I liked, Thursday, Glassjaw, those were the bands that they were citing, Still Suit and Drive Like Jehu and shit like that. So
good choice going backwards there.
Yep. Oh, I agree.
Yeah, and you know what? Like 2003 is kind of a cutoff for me. It's like I liked Saves the Day and Newfound Glory and Thursday. But once you start getting into like Taking Back Sunday, Say Anything, like I don't, you know what I mean? It's just like, I was just already out. I was like on to other things. I had kind of a similar trajectory to you where I listened to all those metalcore bands that you described. That was like my entry point. And then I found post-hardcore. And then I found good emo stuff, and then there was some screamo stuff in there, and then post-hardcore. So I just bounced around, or post-rock, and so I would just find different things and lock onto it. And some bands would survive, and some wouldn't. But I was just like bouncing around all the different areas of independent music.
Yep, that sounds exactly like my musical journey. By the time I got into bands like Dillinger and Thursday, reading interviews with the members would introduce me to so many other, not just bands, but genres. I think through Thursday, I learned about post-rock and got into stuff like Godspeed. Through Dillinger, I found everything from like technical death metal bands like Cynic and Atheist to like jazz fusion artists like Mahavishnu Orchestra. And then, Dillinger did a cover of Come to Daddy by Aphex Twin. So I learned about IDM and got into electronic music, right? Just tendrils everywhere, basically all emerging from Thursday and Dillinger. And so Thursday, we're often called a screamo band, but unlike many incorrectly labeled screamo acts, right? They actually came up with and booked real screamo bands. Like Reversal of Man, You and I, Seisha, they all played shows in Jeff's basement. So reading interviews with him, I learned about screamo. And then, just going on YouTube, I listened to Page 99, City of Caterpillar, all of the classics. And that was that. And now I'm here.
Nice. Yeah, I was going to ask. So, would you say screamo is like your main thing?
As an individual,
Yeah.
it was for a while. I guess realistically, in terms of my actual listening habits, it probably hasn't been the main thing I've listened to since about 2013. But for me, as someone who loves heavy music, it still kind of represents a perfect middle ground of extremity and vulnerability, where you can explore emotions that aren't tough. You know what I mean? You could be raw, you could be introspective, you could be philosophical, you could be esoteric without having to posture or present yourself as being macho or brutal or whatever. But at the same time, the music is extreme and can get quite extreme, in fact. I mean, I know that there are some screamo bands that are really more on like the emo side of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think, especially nowadays, screamo can encompass noise. It can encompass industrial. It can encompass really whatever you care to imagine it encompassing. But in terms of my actual listening habits right now, I mean, I listen to really everything. Like Latin music, uh, ambient music, drone music. Probably more ambient than anything. But I think, like recently, I've been listening to the hip hop group Dialect. If you know them, they're
Oh,
from
yeah. I
Jersey.
just had Mike from Dialect on the show. Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Okay. Yep. Jersey legends, incredible. Hip hop in the purest sense, but at the same time, hip hop like no one else has ever even thought of it. Yeah. Um, just stuff like that. Scott Walker, Sumac, Tim Hecker, artists who are really trying to experiment, regardless of whatever like broad genre they fall into. Shudder to Think, Pony Express record in particular, just weird, um, I don't know, unconventional stuff.
Yeah, I like a lot of lo-fi ambient these days, and then I am getting into a lot of screamo bands. I didn't listen to a ton back in the day. Some Sleepy Time Trio. I don't know if
Ooh,
you could consider Ink and Daggers screamo, maybe the earlier stuff, but
adjacent.
yeah, but them, but I like a lot of the new screamo stuff that's out now. The newer Jerome's Dream album, Hundreds of AU, uh,
Yeah.
just that kind of stuff. Because I'm sort of in a band that's sort of in that neighborhood too, so that propels me into it as well. Because my bandmates, the original lineup, love that stuff. So that and it was something I wish I had explored more when I was young. So I'm doing it now.
Okay, that's awesome. I mean, Hundreds of AU, they're good friends of ours. Quiet Fear, bands like, them, Respire, Jillian Carter.
Yeah, State Fault you mentioned, incredible.
Yes, the new record, Children of the Moon. That's what I'm talking about. A record that is grounded in screamo or uses screamo as a starting point, but from there it explores all sorts of different sounds to the point where you can't really categorize it as anything, you know?
Yeah, that I would say that's the kind of music I gravitate towards, where it's just it's alchemy. It's the perfect alchemy of different sounds, and it can't necessarily be defined by one thing. So that's why when people are like, "What do you listen to?" I'm like, I can't explain it properly.
Same. I 100% relate, and that's exactly what we're trying to do as a band. We're
Yeah.
trying to, yeah, alchemize various things. And I mean, to be quite honest, when we talk about our music, especially with this last record, we don't really think of ourselves as a screamo band. I mean, I think screamo is such a passionate music community, right? That like once you're labeled screamo, it'll stick with you forever, which isn't a bad thing because again, I love this music, right? And without this music, I wouldn't have discovered so many types of film, so many thinkers, right? So many artists, and most importantly, just like 95% of my friends, right? But you know, I think there are 3 songs on the record out of 10 that I would consider screamo songs. The rest are something else. I don't really know what they are, and I like that I don't know.
Yeah, there's a couple songs on the new record that play with some different sounds. It's like not what I expected, and I would say those are some of my favorite songs, and I'm going to get to that. But tell us how the band first got together. How old were you? Where were you? What were you doing? Like, lay it out for us.
Well, perfect. We have a very specific origin story, particularly with respect to how I ended up meeting the other members. So, as we mentioned before, I have another band called Our Wits. And this band actually predates Massa Nera a little bit, despite being significantly less active. Although hopefully that will change now that we have a new record, about to be mastered, and another new record that's almost fully written. Anyway, back in 2015, we were invited to play a show at an American Legion Hall in Roselle Park, New Jersey, which is also near Clark and Linden. And unbeknownst to me, the show was booked by Christopher Rodriguez, my bandmate. The precursor to Massa Nera was one of the bands on the bill that night. And out of respect to Chris and Alan, I won't say their name, just because I know they feel a type of way, even though I liked them. If I didn't, I wouldn't have, I wouldn't have auditioned to take up the drum mantle, right? But anyway, Our Wits played with their old band. And after we finished our set, Chris went up to me and he goes, hey, that was really good. I liked that. Do you listen to jazz music? And I said, yeah, I love jazz. And he started talking about Thelonious Monk and John Coltrane. And I was like, who's this kid talking about jazz at the punk show? And then he goes, yeah, do you listen to Toe, the Japanese math rock band? And I said, yeah, actually, I love Toe. And I'd never met anyone else who knew who they were. So this is the first time I've heard another living human being in real life say their name. And I just thought, whoa, okay, this is kind of cool. And then fast forward a couple months, I go on Facebook. I went to Ramapo College of New Jersey. I was part of the music club there, and we were organizing a punk rock show. So I thought of them because I really enjoyed their set, right? And, lo and behold, it turned out that they needed a drummer, right? They couldn't play the show. So a couple months later, I think I found out they needed a drummer, actually. And I remember thinking, oh, that's that band with that kid who likes jazz music. Maybe that could be interesting. Maybe that could be cool. So I hit them up, didn't hear back, hit them up again a little bit more assertively. They invited me to come practice. All I needed to learn was like part of a Converge song. I think it was a song off of All We Love, We Leave Behind, which admittedly is not the record of theirs that I'm most familiar with. So I forget which song it is. Sadness something or other? I don't remember. But anyway, I learned the song, and I learned their EP as well, just in case. I didn't realize they were really looking to start fresh. So I got there, played the Converge song. Then I said, hey, I learned your EP walking around the mall today. Want to play it? So we played it. They were like, oh, cool. Fuck yeah. By the way, we're not going to be this band anymore. We're starting over, and we're going to, we're going to rename ourselves, and we're going to try to write this kind of music. And then a couple practices in, I think Chris told everyone else that he was thinking of Massa Nera as a name. We all liked it. And boom, that was that. So,
wow. So you learned the EP just walking around the mall.
Yes, walking around the mall, air drumming.
Wow. That's like amazing to me because, I have to put in like serious reps to learn something on bass or guitar. Like, what do? Do you just memorize it and you just know what's coming next? I guess that's it, right?
Yeah, that was it. I just listened to the songs repeatedly until I got the structures down and just, air drummed the parts until I felt comfortable with them. And you asked how old. I was 21 at the time. And that would have meant Chris would have been 20, Alan would have been 19. And then the other members of the band who are no longer in the band, obviously, would have been between 19 and 21 as well.
Okay. So you're going to school at that time. Do you do you have like an idea of what you want to do? Did you think about that at all? Did you want to just do music full time? Were you going to school for something specifically besides music?
No, actually, I was not going for music at all. I was just in the music club. I was going for psychology. I have a master's degree in psychology. I was thinking for a long time that I was going to get my doctorate and become a clinical psychologist.
Not anymore.
No. No, for many reasons that are probably boring for most of your listeners. But yeah, just,
Why is it not for you now?
well, um, psychology will always interest me, but I feel that the American model is too focused on categorization, right? Diagnosis as opposed to like holistic treatment. And the treatments that we have are mostly focused on like cognitive behavioral techniques, which don't really interest me. Rather than not to say that they don't have merit, right? Or that they can't help. But for me, psychology is really supposed to be, I guess, like an emancipatory project of introspection where you really break down defenses and break down barriers and try to come to understand yourself in a deeper way. Whereas psychology, as it's practiced here, is really just about getting people good enough to go back to work.
Yeah, and you know what? I feel like things are so corrupt here. It's hard to get an accurate read on anything between medications and companies pushing medications and insurance companies, which are just the worst, absolute awful thing ever. I have only found peace through deep introspection and work I've done through 12-step stuff because, I'm in recovery and have been for a long time. I have a psychiatrist as well. And wait, who's the one that prescribes stuff? That's like psychiatrist. Yeah, I have a psychiatrist who's also an addiction specialist, but I have had breakthroughs there. I think if you have the right people, the both really help because the psychiatrist can help because with 12-step, it's like, this is all you need. This is all you need to do. Like, this is the solution to everything. Not always. Like the psychiatrist can point out things that, you don't get on this side. So I think that combination of both things works for me. But to your point, yeah, I mean, there's just with this country, it's hard to trust anything, especially these days.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah. So needless to say, like at this point, it's not something that I'm interested in pursuing. I would love to go back and attempt a doctorate at like either music performance or I don't know, some kind of critical theory, But yeah, at the same time I don't want to plunge myself into debt unnecessarily and I don't know, I'm doing more music now than I ever thought I would. And that's what I love the most. So,
how do you get by? How do you make a living?
oh, I have a job. Yeah, I have a job. I work at the Jersey City Municipal Court as part of their community court program. It's basically an alternative to incarceration program for people who have committed low-level offenses. There are only a handful of them in New Jersey. So we meet with people, and rather than just slapping them with fines or arresting them, we try to connect them to resources that will help them meet various areas of need that they should probably address, hopefully integrating them into the community at the same time. Obviously, it's like a fundamentally reformist approach, but it's better than nothing. And out of all the jobs that I could have picked, it's one that at least allows me to sleep somewhat soundly.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds like it sounds like it aligns from what I know about the band and the content that you write about and the things you talk about. It sounds like it at least somewhat aligns with you and what you believe as a person, right? Like it's doing something good.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. And we do outreach events. We try to distribute resources to people. We let people know, like, hey, just so you're aware, you've got a warrant, here are steps that you should take. Here are some resources that you can get connected with. Here's a pro bono legal clinic in Jersey City that you could visit, whatever. So yeah, it definitely is better than just stocking shelves. Not to denigrate people who do that, but The workers who stock shelves, fuck yeah. But the actual practice of stocking shelves for some major corporation, fuck no. You know? Let alone whatever ghoulish jobs are available now. Fucking training some AI model on poetry so that, it could just churn out ridiculous fucking slop.
I was at a I was at a conference the other day for my day job, and they did a presentation on AI, and they had like the AI maturity model, and it was like a triangle with the 5 steps, you know what I mean? And it's like step 1, this level of AI, step 2, this level, step 3, realized machine learning, step 5, like things we can't even comprehend. And I sat there and I sunk into like a deep depression. And I was like, things are going to get really, really bad, like even worse than they are now. And I got hit with that. And at the same time, I got hit with like, I'm old. I feel old right now. Like, and now I understand why old people like kind of cut off at the internet and they're like, no, I'm not doing it. Like my cutoff is AI. I am not going to let a machine think for me. I'm not going to do it.
Yep. I think I read an article the other day the article cited a study saying that 30% of web traffic across the board is down, or 30% of web traffic is down across the board because rather than doing a modicum of research, I mean, we're talking about clicking on a link, You're not opening a fucking book by Foucault and diving into it, right? We're talking about clicking on a fucking link. And people aren't even doing that. They're just looking at the AI overview, right? So, bleak times indeed. I don't really feel good about anything. And I'm only 31. I don't feel good.
Me either, because look, with the internet and Google and everything, okay, we don't remember things, and that's bad. We don't remember phone numbers anymore. If I forget something, I Google it real quick. But imagine not even thinking anymore. I talk to people who are like, oh, this came up, so I put it into Chat GPT, and it gave me these responses. Like, or are we just going to become like walking sponges that just like I don't know. It feels bad.
You know what? I really think it's from birth in this country. We're taught that the only thing that matters is the end result, right? And the end result in relation to the profit model specifically, right? So, it doesn't matter whether an album was created through years of painstaking work or whether it was generated by some sort of algorithm. As long as you have an album, who cares, right? As if you have a video of a cat or a cinematic masterpiece and the same number of people view both, well, then what's the difference, right? When the focus is just on efficiency in the name of producing results, the method of such production be damned. I mean, it makes sense that people are going to internalize that idea and apply it to their own behaviors, right? So, if you have a question and you need an answer, whether you read a book or ask ChatGPT for the answer, what's the difference, right? You got what you wanted. And, we're all going to fucking suffer as a result. We're going to fucking suffer. And I think I was watching an Ari Aster video. He was promoting his new film, Eddington. And he said something to the effect of, we're living in an experiment that's already failed. And yet we're just being pushed along the tracks, Anyway, like we all know that it's not working. Or at least anyone who thinks for a fraction of a second can tell you that it's not working. And yet we're persisting anyway.
As long as we appease the line and maximize profits, we got to ride it out to the bitter end, right? Because that's what's most important.
Yep. And you know what? One of the light bulb moments when we were doing research for this record, right?
Yes.
I was listening to
and we're talking about The Emptiness of All Things. That's the new Massa Nera LP, right?
Yes. The Emptiness of All Things. I was listening to WFMU, which is an amazing public radio station in New Jersey, based in Jersey City. And I tuned into their Tectonic program. I wasn't even aware of it. Chris is an avid listener, so he clued me in after the fact. But the host was talking about some conference at which Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, he was speaking, or speaking, quote unquote, and he was asked about the environmental impact of AI, right? And his response was essentially, well, it's not going anywhere. So we just need to come up with some sort of technology that's going to mitigate the environmental cost. In other words, we can't move back. We just have to innovate further in order to soften the blow. And I thought, wow, that's insane. We are so committed to this that rather than take a step, take a second and think, what are we doing? We would rather imagine bandages that we could invent in order to lessen the shock.
Well, yeah, they're going to do the underwater server farms now. That'll be fine, right?
Yeah, first it was stuff like carbon capture and storage. We were going to suck the carbon out of the air and we were going to inject it into the earth. We were going to inject aerosols into the atmosphere and they were going to reflect sunlight back into space. And now we have underground water farms or whatever the fuck. Jesus Christ. This is fucking stupid. It's such a stupid, like, shockingly, almost, if this were a film or a book, I mean, I hesitate to say it would be funny. Maybe it would feel so over the top we wouldn't even laugh, right? It would seem like sub-farcical. But yeah, it's just a stupid dystopia that we're living through right now.
It's not good. But what is good is the emptiness of all things. I have heard it. And listen, everybody, when it comes out, you should really check it out. If you're into classic screamo, good crossover, heavy music, all the stuff that I was talking about with Mark earlier, all of the stuff that we like. If you like that stuff, you will like this. Now, I read about the making of this record. The album began life as a commission from the Gabriella Lena Frank Creative Academy for Music, specifically to address the climate crisis. Now, that's an album origin story I've never heard before. Tell us about that. What, how, when, tell us about that.
Sure. It's pretty straightforward. Our former bassist, AJ, who's on the record, she's part of the record, helped write it, performed on it, but she's no longer in the band. She is a composer as well. And she had attended the Gabriella Lena Frank Creative Academy of Music as part of this series, right? She'd already went through basically a year's worth of courses. There was a syllabus with multiple books, articles, videos, etc. And, Gabriella, she's very open-minded. So I guess at one point, AJ said, hey, I've got this band and maybe we would be interested in doing something like this. So she extended the offer. We talked about it. We said, sure, that would be interesting. And from there, we started writing. The initial writing sessions were not particularly fruitful. And so we pivoted to the Quiet Fear split, right? We just wrote our songs for that, wrote the lyrics for that, focused on the artwork. And once that record was mixed, mastered, and the art was done, we started revisiting this commission, which initially was only supposed to be 15 to 20 minutes of music. We were thinking of it as kind of like an experiment rather than a proper release, right? So when we revisited it, I guess Chris Allen and myself in particular, we just thought, you know what? We have a bunch of ideas, or at least we're itching to write. We did have a bunch of ideas, but many of the ideas we had didn't make it onto the record. But we didn't know that would be the case at the time. So our thinking was, well, we've got all these ideas. We have this commission. Why don't we use the commission as an excuse to just work on our third record? And that's what happened. And so, that desire to experiment informed the making of the album, but in truth, it's what we would have done anyway, because, with each record, we want to push ourselves further. We want to get weirder. We want to get more abrasive. We want to challenge ourselves. Ideally, we want to challenge, the 10 people who listen to Massa Nera and have an expectation as to what we should sound like. We want to continue growing as artists and as musicians and songwriters. I think we would have pursued this track anyway. certainly from a lyrical standpoint, from a thematic standpoint, the commission provided the framework for the entire record, um, and did indeed govern the way that we were thinking about it. And the good thing was, since we had a lyrical framework from the very beginning, right, it allowed us to synchronize the music and the lyrics in a way that we might not have otherwise done, right? So, in other words, we would, write music and we would think, okay, where is this in the context of the entire record? Where is this probably going to fall? What have we explored lyrically before? How are we feeling? What images does this music evoke in us? What lyrical moods are we thinking of? And then we went from there. So it was a much more integrated style of writing than what we had done in the past, where we would write music, we'd say, okay, this is good. Then we'd write lyrics, and then after a few songs, we would say to ourselves, okay, it seems like we're writing about X, Y, and Z. Maybe we should keep that in mind as we compose the rest of the record. This time, that process was done for us. If anything, the challenge was narrowing things down because, the climate crisis is an unfathomably broad topic, which is probably why we're so seemingly incapable of reckoning with it, right? Because it scrambles almost every narrative we have, or at least every Western individualistic narrative that we have. So then the question became okay, do we approach this in kind of like a Monster of the Week format where every song is about a different subtopic? Here's the song about climate refugees. Here's the song about AI. Here's the song about deforestation. Do we pick one topic and then burrow really deeply, right? And ultimately, the approach was, because we don't feel good about the way things are, and because we were in a particularly dark place when we were writing the record, the mindset became, well, let's try to explore this topic psychologically. Let's try to burrow into specific mindsets. What does a capitalist think about this? What does a bootlicking salesperson think about this? What does someone shilling electric vehicles think about this? What about someone who's so beaten down that they've convinced themselves that well, this has nothing to do with them. They are just I've got to focus on feeding my family. I don't have time to worry about this shit. So it was a psychologically informed approach that we tried to take. Yeah.
That's a very interesting way to approach it. I like that because then you get different perspectives rather than just being like, hey, there's this thing and it's bad, or so it's because like the song Lavender, I know there's that's named after the AI program that Israel is using for in Gaza for genocide purposes, right? And then it segues into, I think someone had an experience with a professor.
That's me.
Oh, that was you. Yeah, I read about that. The guy was claiming to be on the right side of things, but then harassing students and being pro-genocide, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I was reading through the lyrics and it segued into the professor, and I was like, oh, that's the professor he's talking about. And it really doesn't hold back. It's brutal and descriptive and kind of ugly. And I like that approach because with these topics, I think we have to not hold back. I mean, there's so many bad things happening. It's just, it's good to just hit people with it.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, to be blunt, right? Lyrically speaking, we feel that lots of quote unquote screamo music, the framework is usually a diaristic one, right? There's this presumption of autobiography, wherein, of course the band is talking about personal experience, right? Of course they're talking about how this affects them. No, I mean, with a lot of screamo bands, it's not true. They're nakedly political. But then you get the other extreme where it feels like it's just a polemic which has value and can be artful, but isn't necessarily the most interesting, right? Particularly with this topic, I felt well, if we're going to lecture people, why even write lyrics? We should just publish a fucking annotated bibliography. There are people who know way more than we do. Why waste people's time? And why do that in the context of super technical, weird screamo or extreme music where we're also all playing instruments? It's one thing if we had a vocalist who could just kind of float on top of the music and fill every conceivable space with a word. But that is not us. You know, we have to fucking play this shit while doing vocals, and it's not easy all the time. So we value brevity. We enjoy long passages without any words. So, you know, a didactic approach didn't really make sense. A diaristic approach wouldn't have made sense. And quite frankly, specifically with a song like Lavender, right? Of course, we could have said, this is bad, you know, this, that, and the other thing. But then, I mean, we're not saying anything that people don't already know, number one. And two, we're kind of positioning ourselves in such a way that we could feel good about ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, look at us. We're so woke. We're telling you all about how bad this thing is. Buy our record. What the fuck? You know? And even if we give away our record for free, we're still obtaining, you know, a sort of cultural capital for it, right? It feels like we're profiting materially or otherwise off of something that we don't necessarily have direct skin in the game in, you know, which is fucking shitty. So yeah, I did not want to do that. I did not want this to be a record that made us feel good about ourselves. I don't want anyone to feel good listening to it, quite frankly. And the process of making it was so intense and so unpleasant. I remember when we were touring Europe, you know, I'd walk around with my fucking journal, just writing and writing and writing. And then I would rant to Chris and Alan. I'd be like, man, this record is like a fucking disease that I need to shake off. This record's like a fucking virus. I just want to be done with it. I want to inflict it upon other people, which is, you know, that's silly and pretentious and very precious and all of those things. But at the time, it felt sincere because it was sincere. Because the record was really, it didn't feel good, but it shouldn't have felt good because it's not about a pleasant topic, and we shouldn't feel holier than thou or self-righteous or self-satisfied writing these songs. Because at the end of the day, this is just a record that's probably preaching to the choir. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck are we doing?
What was tough and unpleasant about making it?
Well, you know, there were personal factors, of course. Before making the record, my uncle died. Chris and AJ both lost relatives. There was the time crunch aspect of it. You know, the Gabriella Lena Frank Creative Academy, like, they didn't place a hard deadline on us. They were actually very understanding. But we felt like we should probably have the record done by a certain point. Alan was moving, and he has moved to California. And so we needed to get the record done before that. And also, just, it was getting the record where we wanted to get it. I don't want to say that was hard. Not that it was easy per se, but like, the music was coming very naturally. The ideas were being expressed in a very fluid, unself-conscious fashion, you know. Even stuff like the track listing, it was pretty obvious from the word go which song would start the record, and from there, and which song would end the record. And from there, everything else kind of fell into place. You know, lyrically, getting everything how we wanted it, getting everything how I wanted it was not easy. It involved a lot of research. I read multiple books, watched numerous films. We had a document in our you know, our email. It was a note document where I could keep track of everything, and I think it was over 200 pages long.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, dealing with that and trying to get everyone on the same page, and just getting the record done within the time frame that we established for ourselves while going on tour and playing shows and doing all these things, it was a lot. And I was definitely living this record. I was eating it, breathing it, sleeping it. So were my bandmates. You know, at the same time, ultimately, I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't want to fetishize struggle or suggest that great art necessarily. Well, first of all, I don't want to suggest that our record is great art.
I'll say it. I think it's great art. So there, you don't have to.
Well, thank you. But I don't want to, you know, fall into this trap of saying like, oh, you know, to make something great, you have to struggle, because that sort of logline has been used to justify all kinds of insane behaviors. But I do think great art requires effort, and sometimes effort necessitates struggle or at least sacrifice.
Yeah, just even coordinating schedules at our age and practicing and learning the songs and playing them enough to where they're good and where they're tight and where you're ready to go into the studio, because 99% of us can't just book 3 months in a studio and like hash it out. I still have to go in ready. Do you?
Yep.
Yes. So even that is like that effort is that's the minimum, I think.
Yeah. There's no writing in the studio. Maybe you're making some editorial decisions, you're refining a couple things, but like writing, no, we had 6 days to record everything, and even that wasn't enough time. We needed to record a couple things after the fact in our practice space. So like, it was intense, but that's the only way that I want to make art. I want to give it everything and then some. I want to go to hell and back or to heaven and back because, for as grueling as it is, it's more rewarding than almost anything as well. To create something that you're proud of, to create something that surprises you, where you feel like you're uncovering a part of yourself that you didn't even know existed and being able to share it with other people and actually having an audience for it. I mean, I could talk about how difficult the album was and how I felt like I was losing my mind, but I would do it again without hesitation. And I really can't complain because, I have something and my bandmates have something that we're going to be proud of for the rest of our lives, right? And, with this record in particular, I feel like when we made Dedama Kider Badar, right? We all felt like it was a huge step forward for us. Like, okay, we've found our identity as a band, and we're shaking off, like the shackles of genre. We're no longer as worried about that. We're doing what we want. We're integrating the visuals with the music. We're integrating the videos with the album. Like the album is part of a larger project. We're really getting into weird ideas concerning hauntology and capitalist realism and brutalism and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That record felt like a major step forward, and it felt like a clarifying moment for us as a band and as individuals. So when it came to this album, I was worried that it would be like a lateral move. And if anything, I feel like we've taken an even bigger step forward. So, I mean, I don't know. I can't complain at all. I'm really happy and proud, and it was worth any moment of unpleasantness that we experienced.
Yeah, that's interesting because I have felt that too between releases. I'm like, are we going to write the same things? Is it going to be a retread? Am I going to be able to write again? Am I doing the right thing? Is what's coming out of me correct? So coming into the emptiness of all things, how did you know it was the right thing? Was it a combination of just like feeling and media you were taking in? When did you realize that you were heading in the right direction? Tell us about some of that.
You know what? I would say pretty much from the beginning. So again, a couple of the ideas on the record emerged during these initial writing sessions, right? That were largely unproductive. The main riff for Pellerin, the little musical motif that kind of appears throughout the record, that bum 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 ba bum 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 ba. The beginning of New Animism, which Alan was already writing on acoustic guitar. The main riff and drum beat for Death Shall Flee From Them. So there were some ideas, but there were no songs, But then when we finally started writing for the record properly, pretty much immediately, A Body and Pellerin emerged, fully formed, arrangement and all. And then I think the next practice session, we wrote Avalon Cove. And we even figured out how to connect them. So, right from there, we were like, whoa, this is different. What the fuck is this? And, based on everything we had talked about doing, based on the ideas that maybe were a little bit more extreme or a little bit more ultra that we had wanted to incorporate in previous releases, but were unable to, based on how we felt about the record and the ideas that we were discussing, the concepts that we were discussing, we knew right away, oh, this is the right approach. This is what we've been wanting to do. This feels like us. Expectations be damned. fuck everyone. And that's always been the approach. We write for ourselves and that's it. I mean, it's easy to do that because it's not like we're making any money on this band, no one's making money off of us. So it's easy to be totally selfish. But with this record in particular, we were almost obstinate in our selfishness. Right from the beginning. And that made it easier, knowing pretty much from the word go that we were on the right track and that we were confident in our approach. And if anything, then the question became, okay, when are we going to integrate a little bit of the old flavor back into the proceedings? We don't want this just to be like bam, 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 bam. Not that any of our records have been like that, but this one especially, when the ceiling is so extreme, at least for us, the question is, well, then how do what do we balance that with? And but you know what? The songs came really naturally. So I don't know. Yeah, we pretty much from the beginning we were confident. Now, without getting into details, not everyone was on board. So, the question then became, okay, whose vision for the record is going to win? This, that, and the other thing. But by the end, we were all synchronized and it became a collective vision and it was smooth. So
now, when not everyone is on the same page, I'm curious because I've been through these types of things too. All right, so is it like 3 against 1, 2 against 2, and then it filters down? Like what was it like?
For this record, it was kind of 3 against 1 at times. Sometimes it was 2 against 2, but that was usually for much more minor things. Like, oh, are we going to do this or are we going to do that? And then more often than not, we would just do both. Like, do we want a blast beat here? Do we want to use these chords? That's like relatively unimportant stuff. But for the bigger, more conceptual stuff, it was kind of 3 against 1. Really almost like 1 against 1 with 2 people in one corner, supporting one vision of the record. Which, is basically 3 against 1. For that sort of thing, I guess we just had numerous discussions. And, those of us who felt one way just wrote music and wrote lyrics that were in accordance with that idea. And then we said, okay, hey, we're not just talking the talk. Here's what we think. Here's the music and here are the lyrics to back it up. We feel like this is a coherent vision for the record. And eventually, everyone was on the same page.
Because I always wonder about those types of things. I've been in a situation where it's just butting heads and you're never on the same page. And I wonder about situations where it's like, I guess you got to take it on a case-by-case basis, because it's like, if 2 people want me, I'm in a 3-piece band. If the other 2 guys wanted me to do something and I didn't want to do it, like, all right, this hasn't happened, but let's say they're like, hey, we like this song. And I'm like, but I hate it. I'm not going to learn a song and write lyrics if I hate it. Like, I can't, right? And is that the right thing to do? And I wouldn't want to do that to someone else. So if I write a song and they hate it, I think my general rule would be like, if we can't agree, we drop it and move on to something else and maybe come back to it later and everyone will agree or something.
I see what you mean. Well, I guess for us, we were lucky in the sense that the disagreements had more to do with the conceptual approach to the record rather than the musical approach. How are we going to tackle this record? How do we want to express our ideas? What ideas do we want to express? How do we even feel about the ideas that we're exploring? Are we optimistic or are we fatalistic? That's where the disagreements, that's where they were existing. Musically, we were all on the same page. And lyrically, I wrote the majority of the lyrics, so there wasn't really any discussion in that regard, except, do you like these lyrics? Do we feel good about them? But once we started writing the music and writing the lyrics, everyone was more synchronized. It was really more those initial discussions before the proper writing sessions even began, where we were trying to kind of narrow down our approach where there were more disagreements. But and again, for me, I guess maybe this is selfish or egotistical, but rather than saying, well, we disagree, so we're going to come to a compromise, or maybe we could do something else, I guess, we felt so strongly about our um, idea. We felt so strongly about what we felt the record should be that the approach was, okay, let's write stuff that reflects this and then show it to the other person, which is what we did. And that worked.
Yeah, that's another thing. Sometimes there's ideas that are so strong you can't let them go. Like that's how my band really got started. I got hit with like a lightning bolt of a concept and a name, and it was like nothing I ever felt before. And I was like, guys, this has to be it. This is what I want to do. Here's the idea. Here's the name. Do you want to do it? And if they said no, I think I would have just left and tried to do it elsewhere, because I can't like get another lightning bolt. You know what I mean? Like that's like a once in a lifetime thing when you get stuff like that. It's not like, okay, I'll just stop and come up with something else. No, it's like you gotta go with it sometimes.
Yes, 100%. That's how we felt about, what the record ultimately became. And like you said, sometimes you can't back down, Sometimes you have to really defend the idea and you have to say, no, this is what it should be. And this is why. I'm not just saying this because I want to do this. I want to do this because of reasons A through Z. And I can articulate those reasons and back them up both on a conceptual level and on a musical level. And when you do that, it makes it easier for everyone to get on the same page if there was a disagreement,
Right. Since the Emptiness of All Things was a commission, is there any like legal stuff? Like, I mean, can you put the album out on Persistent Vision with no issue? Does the Creative Academy for Music like own it, or do they only like? Is there anything like that?
No, they don't. They don't own it. We're able to release it. We sent them everything. Like when we finished writing and recording the record before the release was, fully planned out. We sent them, I don't even think it was mastered yet. I think we had the first mix pass. We sent them everything and they said, yeah, this is great. They're really just looking to get artists to create work that is vital and important and addresses this topic.
What are they going to do with it?
I guess they're not really going to do anything with it. It's our record. We own the copyright, if you want to use that language, So it's our record.
I was just wondering, are they going to use it for anything? Like, what if they play it before it comes out in some exhibit, or like?
Oh, I mean, I would love for that to happen. As far as we're concerned, I mean, obviously, all of our music is free. We are happy to let people do whatever they want. For me, I like the idea of giving people credit, not like monetary credit, just a shout out, like, hey, this came from this. If someone sampled our music, I would just want people to know that, oh, this is a sample of this Massa Nera song. Beyond that, do whatever you want. So if they had ideas for this record, if they wanted to incorporate it in conceptual pieces, or they had other artistic installations that they were looking to create and they wanted to use some of our music as part of that, that would be incredible and a real pleasure, honestly. But, but we're able to do whatever we want with the record as well.
So listen, everybody, The Emptiness of All Things is going to be out on Persistent Vision Records October 31st. Now, by the time you hear this wonderful conversation, the record will be out. So hopefully you listened to it and purchased it. But Mark, what is coming up that you can tell us about? Anything?
Not really. You know what? We're on a bit of a break from shows, just so that we can organize things in our personal lives, so that when we get back on the road, we can be as relentless as we like to be, without having all of this stress hanging over us. Rather than tour being like an escape from problems or issues that we're just kind of pushing off, we want tour to be tour and integrated into our lives in like a holistic way. And we love to tour. So, in order to do it the way we like to do it and the way we think is the right way to do it, we're taking a little bit of a break. That being said, we have a bunch of new music already in the works. Some of it very close to being finished, but I don't want to talk about it just yet because it's not done, right? So when it's ready, people will hear about it, but it's really cool. I'm really excited. And we did record these songs during the same sessions as the Emptiness of All Things. So they're part of that same time in our lives, even though musically they sound very different from the record. They're definitely their own thing, you know? Then we have a couple other things that we're working on that are in the idea phase, you know? They haven't been recorded, they haven't been mixed, but that's even less certain. So I guess I'll just say we're working on new music. And we're talking about new ideas constantly. We're definitely not of the mindset that we just want to enjoy the release of this record and like let it, play out and just kind of bask in it. No, we want to move forward. We want to continue exploring, and we're excited to do so. Beyond that, well, if we don't have any releases that I could talk about and we don't have any shows coming up, well, maybe when we are going to play one show in New Jersey in December, on December 19th, to celebrate the release of this record. So presumably by the time this podcast episode is released, the show is going to be announced. So yeah, we do have that. Otherwise, more music videos, more art, and sometime next year we're going to have another release, and hopefully we'll have two additional releases that we're working on. But I'm not going to say any more.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot to look forward to, and I'm happy about that. And look, everyone out there should be as well. And Mark, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. I can't wait for everybody else to hear the Emptiness of All Things. I love the band, and thank you.
Thank you. This was really great and a lot of fun. And I'm happy that you stuck with me while I was trying to figure out what the fuck was going on with my computer.
Hey, there's always some setup. It's just a question of how long.
Yep. And hopefully it wasn't too long.
No, we got it done. And there you have it, Mark Boulanger. Excellent conversation. If you have not checked out Massa Nera yet, definitely do it. The Emptiness of All Things is a really, really solid release. A lot of interesting stuff going on. And this conversation with Mark was just super interesting. How the Emptiness of All Things came to be, like a commissioned work through AJ's school, and just hearing about the creative process and some of the difficulties that they've had to navigate and overcome. And I really like the approach for the record too, because you hear like, oh, record about climate change. Oh, here we go. We're going to hear, we're going to get lectured to. But no, I read through all the lyrics of the record as I was listening to it for the first time, prepping for Mark to come on the show. And it was really striking. It's like brutal. It's direct. It's in your face in a way that I haven't quite seen in a while. And how Mark explained how it's through a number of different lenses, like through a businessman or through, everything else he was talking to. I think that's a really interesting approach, because then it's not just, us lecturing to you. We're looking at this through a number of different lenses. And that's an approach I like to take in songwriting too. It's not just one person, one view, though. There will be different people, different viewpoints. It jumps from present tense to past tense. It's just really interesting stuff, and it was a real pleasure to talk to Mark. So thank you so much, Mark, for coming on the show. So let's check in. How are we doing? It has been a hell of a month, insanely busy, but I'm happy to say that I got through it without completely losing my mind. Work just really picked up to the point that I didn't have time to do anything. So if you ever see a show and I'm not checking in at the end of the show, it means I'm in a really bad state of mind or work is really busy. And it's usually work being really busy. That's what happened. There was a lot going on, but I got through it. I somehow got through all of it, and I'm still surprised that I did. And I'm happy that I did because things have slowed down a bit now. And now I have a chance to breathe and catch up with some quality of life stuff. Clean the apartment, shower. No, I'm just kidding. I shower every day. Work out more. I ran 2 miles yesterday without stopping. 2 miles. I haven't done that on my home route yet. I ran a 5K for the first time the other week. I think that was 3 weeks ago. Never did that. 3 miles nonstop. And then I took a little break, and then I was doing 1 mile again, had to build back up. Yesterday I did 2 miles without stopping, and I felt like $1 million afterwards. I feel like $1 million right now. I can feel the addiction growing. I already want to run back out and do it again now, but no time today. But I have a week off from work coming up because it's going to be Thanksgiving week, and I'm really excited for that because I could use the break. Besides that, during that whole crazy busy month, I was in Philadelphia as well with Nathaniel Shannon. We were covering the Ink and Dagger reunion shows. I was down there for almost a whole week. Nathaniel and I have a piece that we put together and wrote for New Noise magazine that will be in the December issue. So pick it up because that's going to be awesome. That's my first foray into real official music journalism. So I'm very excited about that. And we're hoping to continue to do more things like that. So also we have an Ink and Dagger reunion show recap episode of the new scene going up Friday, December 4th. So make sure you check that out. We recapped the whole week down there, all the shows, and to our YouTube viewers, definitely check out that episode on YouTube. I'm going to have exclusive behind the scenes footage, sound checks, the venue getting set up, the mural getting painted. There's a Sean McCabe mural in Philadelphia done by Espo. All kinds of behind the scenes stuff that you're not going to see anywhere else except this new scene episode. So I'm very excited for you to see that. Friday, December 4th. Make sure you check it out. Besides that, I saw Shiner and Mirrorless last week in New York City. They played at the Mercury Lounge. Up first was Mirrorless. That's Chris Higdon from Elliot. It's like a melodic post-hardcore band. Think Elliot with a little more edge, I guess. A little more traditional pop-punk post-hardcore edge. Great band, though. Awesome stuff. I'm working on getting Chris back on the show, so we'll talk to him more about Mirrorless. And after Mirrorless was Shiner.
And everyone is such a home. When you lose, you will to see. Nothing makes you want to breathe. Masturbation's lost its fun. I came enough for no one. Holding the sun, cause I've not begun. Holding the sun, the stars are holding the sun, life
This was my second time seeing Shiner, and I was completely, absolutely blown away. Easily one of the best shows I've seen this year. They started with, 5 or 6 songs from Believe You Me, their new LP, and wow, their rhythm section is second to none. The tones were crazy. Everything sounded huge. Alan was spot on. The crowd was super into it. The club was packed. I was blown away. I was blown away. The first time I saw Shiner was in 2016 at St. Vitus, but I didn't really know the band that much then. I just ended up at the show, and I liked it. I kind of liked the band at the time. The Egg was the only album I had heard, so I liked that. But I'm a full-blown 100% Shiner fan now, especially live after seeing them. I really, really got it this time. So they played a lot of songs from Believe You Me and some old classics, and it was a fantastic night. Oh, I also ate at Katz's, the famous Katz's delicatessen here in New York City. Haven't eaten there in years. And you know what? I hear people complain about the $50 price tag. If you want everything, if you want a full pastrami sandwich, fries, drink, everything, it's going to cost you $50. But I maintain it is worth it. It was unbelievably good. I don't care about food. I don't think about eating, and I was thinking about that sandwich all day. And when I ate it, I was extremely happy. So if you haven't been to Katz's, you have to go. It's a New York staple. And that is about it. That's everything that's going on. I'll check in at the end of next week's show because we've got a big guest coming up that you're definitely going to want to hear from. Blockbuster episode. We'll read some YouTube comments. We'll read some Spotify comments. We'll hear from you, the listener. So thank you so much to everyone who continues to support the show. Please like, subscribe, comment, share, all of that crap that you have to do to make it in this digital world these days. But I'm happy. The show is bigger than it's ever been. It's busier than it's ever been. And great things are happening. So I'm back next week with a new episode and a new guest. And I'll see you then.